Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Body. My name is Sabrina, and today I'm going to be telling you about one of my out-of-body experiences where I actually went to another Earth-like planet. So if you'd like to hear more about that story, keep watching. So this out-of-body experience is actually one of the times that I astral projected, which means where I intentionally left my body as I was waking up. Actually, is when this one happened. It was early in the morning, about 6 a.m. So it happened as I was waking up, and I was kind of in this half asleep state, and I had sleep paralysis, which is usually typically what happens to me before I have an out-of-body experience. Not everybody experiences it that way. But so I had the sleep paralysis, and I started to feel the vibrations all over my body. And at that point I knew, okay, let me try to leave my body. In this particular episode, I actually had trouble getting out of my body. The vibrations actually ceased. And so I was like, crap, I'm not going to be able to do it this time. But then I just focused on thinking about floating. And then all of a sudden I was out of my body, so it worked. So once I got out of my body, in this particular instance, I wanted to do something similar to what Robert Monroe did in some of his out-of-body experiences, where he actually, after he left his body, he made a point to go visit someone he knew, like a friend or a family member or something, and just kind of watch them with whatever they're doing at that time, so that when he goes back to his body and wakes up, he could later verify with his friend, like, hey, I was out of my body at this time during this day. I saw you doing this and talking about this. Is that true? To kind of cross-verify, just to make sure like he was really out of his body. And he did that many times. So this is what I wanted to do. So I got out of my body, and immediately I thought of my brother. And so I thought I would try to visit him and see, because he was usually up pretty early in the morning. I figured he'd be awake. So all I did was kind of close my eyes so I could focus, and I focused on my brother's name, and then I kind of put my hands like this and then raised them up into the air as to kind of signal myself for flight, so to speak. Anyway, before I know it, I'm up in the air, I'm in the sky. I don't open my eyes because I'm too scared, but I can feel myself rushing up and flying, and I can actually hear almost, the sound is similar to when you're in a jet airplane, and you can hear like the air, the particles, like, rushing past the airplane. So I'm going up, 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 and up. I can feel myself flying straight up into the sky. And then all of a sudden I feel myself kind of spiral downward. And in my mind I'm thinking, okay, I must have found my brother. Because in these out-of-body experiences, if you ever try it, or if you have ever tried it, you know what I'm talking about. Your mind controls the entire experience. So it's just a very slight thought about something, it'll take you to that place or to that person. Sometimes even you won't even realize that you're thinking about something, and all of a sudden your atmosphere, your environment changes. So anyway, I spiral down and I land. So I open my eyes and I see my brother. He's actually sitting up in bed. And the weird thing about this experience, I think I might have entered in some sort of like parallel mirrored dimension of our world or something like that, because when I was in his room, everything was the same, except everything was mirrored. Like his bed was on the opposite side of the room. Even the closet and the door to his room was on the opposite side. So it was kind of weird. It was like I was in some kind of mirrored version. So basically, he says something to me and I don't remember what. And so I just kind of sit there awkwardly for a minute, and then I say hi, and I'm kind of looking around, like, I feel like I'm looking around like shifty eyes or something. And then I just decide to leave, I say goodbye and I leave. So this part was verified later, because when I woke up and I got up for the day and I went to work, I texted my brother, and he already knew about some of the out-of-body experiences I'd been having, because this wasn't my first attempt at astral projection. This was like the second or third, and I'd already told him about all of it. So I told him, like, hey, this might sound weird, but I had an OBE this morning, and I actually came and visited you. Do you remember anything weird that happened? You probably don't remember any of it. You actually sat up in bed and said something to me. And then he responded and said that he didn't remember any of it. But he distinctly remembers at the same time that I'm certain that I was out of my body, and I know this because I looked at my phone, and then I started to go back to sleep, and that's when I got the sleep paralysis and left my body. So anyway, so I would say it was probably around 6 a.m. that I ended up in my brother's room. And he said he didn't remember anything about me being there, but what he does remember is hearing his phone go off as if he got a text or a phone call. And so he woke up and looked over at his phone, but there were no notifications or texts or calls or anything. Like his phone just went off for no reason at 6 a.m. So I thought that was kind of interesting, you know, and he did think that was kind of weird because that doesn't normally happen. So that was kind of my validation. I mean, it's not a strong validation, but it is significant for me, that kind of validated that I was there. Maybe somehow my energy kind of affected his phone and kind of made it go off, maybe as I was rushing out of the place or as I was rushing in, who knows. But typically when you're out of your body and you do visit people, and even if you carry on a conversation with them while you're out of your body, later on they usually don't recall it. Even if you can tell them, like, I witnessed you doing this, this, and this, and then I started talking to you and we said this, this, and this, and they'll be like, okay, I remember having a conversation with the other person in the room, but not you. I don't recall you being there at all. So it's kind of like, almost like a glitch in the Matrix, or maybe that's, you know, I'm sure that's how it's set up, you know, in our world, that when things like that happen, the other person doesn't recall. So getting to the real meat and potatoes of this story, so to speak. I'm from the South, sorry. So I was outside and I look up in the sky and I look up at the moon, and immediately I think, I want to go to the moon. I want to see if I can actually fly up to the moon, because I've heard of other people doing that and actually going to the moon. They say it's a really neat experience, or flying around the planets or something. And so I'm like, okay, normally in my body I'm really afraid of heights, but in this instance I was like, you know what, I'm excited. I want to just try this. I just want to do it. And so I do it. I just fly straight upward, and this time I keep my eyes open most of the time. I kind of black out for some of it, or close my eyes or whatever, but I try to keep my eyes open, and I can see as I'm just soaring up into the sky straight at the moon. And let me tell you, that is just the most awesome experience I have ever had. That is partly why I have the moon logo as my out of body logo, because I'm like obsessed with the moon now ever since that experience. It was crazy when you think about it, being able to just, like, when you think about just standing outside your house, looking up at the moon and saying, I want to go there, lifting up your arm, and then all of a sudden you're flying straight towards it. Like, that's crazy. So anyway, I'm flying towards it, and I can kind of see these other little, like, colored, really thin rings around it, and kind of out in the solar system too, just kind of these thin, like, purple and blue, and I don't know what those are. I've heard of other people seeing stuff like that when they go up into space while they're out of their body. I don't know what that is, but it was pretty. It was actually really hard for me to control where I was flying, even though I was flying straight for the moon. I ended up flying past it, and I can't stop myself. I'm going so fast, and I didn't know how to slow myself down, if that makes sense, and to land on the moon, because I was going straight towards it, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. All of a sudden it's like filling up my vision, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to the moon. And then all of a sudden I just fly straight past it, like straight up, like I'm still going up past it, and I'm like, crap, you know. And I just kept going and going. I was like, how do I stop? And eventually I finally stop, and I'm just in the middle of this blackness space, but it wasn't black as in, like, I couldn't see anything black. I mean, it was black, but I could still see around me. So I don't know if that was like my own aura, you know, my soul's light that was kind of lighting my way, because I could see around me. I could see those rings, and I could see like little particles in space. I couldn't really tell if I could see stars or anything, but just like little particles, you know, little light particles. So anyway, at that point, I'm just kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I'm looking around, and all I see is just space. All I see is just dark, little particles, little rings. Other than that, nothing. I don't even see the moon anymore. I'm like, where am I? How far did I go? And so at that point, I'm a little bit scared because here I am levitating. God knows how high up in the sky in our solar system. And I don't know where I am, and I'm out of my body, and it's one of my first experiences. And so I'm like, okay, I'm a little scared. What do I do? And so I try to retrace my steps, and I try to go back to Earth. I try to find Earth. So I'm flying, I'm going, and I just start moving and moving, and there's just nothing. And I start to see planets, but none of them are Earth. I see like a yellow planet, and an orange planet, and a grayish looking planet, and just all these different planets, but none of them are Earth. And so I'm just moving and moving, seeing all these planets zooming past me. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I am definitely not in our solar system because I have not seen Saturn or Pluto or any of the planets I recognize in our solar system. And none of them looked like they had life on the planet. I mean, they were just, looked like wasteland. I mean, from what I could tell. I just kept going, like kind of panicking at that point. I was like, oh, I'm lost. What do I do? And then finally, I do find a planet that's actually blue, and it's got a little bit of clouds going across it. I get closer to it, and I start to see a landmass on it, but it's kind of like just this one clump of green, like this one clump of landmass and blue all around it, and it didn't look like it. It didn't look like Earth. I mean, it looked like Earth as far as like, the land masses in the water and the clouds, but the land masses weren't shaped like ours. So at that point, I'm out of my body, and I'm still kind of like, okay, is this Earth? I don't know. But I was like so lost, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go to this planet. So I just focus on it, and I go straight towards it, and before I know it, I'm in this building, and it's really dark. And I'm kind of just looking around. It was so dark in there, but it looked kind of like a cafeteria on one side of it that was kind of lit up with the fluorescent lights. And then on the other side, it was just darkness. Like, I don't even know what was over there other than the people that I saw. So I saw people there, and so I kind of thought, oh, great, this must be somewhere on Earth. I don't know where I am. Pretty soon I realized this ain't Earth. So, like, there's a bunch of people in that room, and I'm kind of hovering, like, up towards the ceiling in that room, and I'm looking down on these people, and I wasn't scared at first because they just kind of looked like regular people. I mean, I thought it was odd that they were just standing around in the darkness, but they had kind of, like, I would say, like, medium olive tone skin tone. Like, they all had the same skin tone. I see a man that looks to be, like, maybe in his late 30s, early 40s, and what I assume was his son was right next to him. There was a little boy that looked maybe like 10 years old. And the little boy looks up at me and actually can see me. Everyone else is just kind of going about their business and they're not looking at me. The little boy looks up at me and just starts staring at me. And as he's staring at me, I immediately get very disturbed. Not because he's staring at me, but because of what I saw in his eyes. If you saw the thumbnail to this video, I have a picture on there of what their eyes looked like. When I looked at that boy's eyes, I immediately got frightened because his eyes were completely black. He still had the whites on the side, but his iris, I guess you call it, was completely black except for a little white dot, kind of not right in the center, but kind of off center in his eye, just a little white dot. And so immediately I'm like, whoa, what is up with that kid's eyes? And then he looks at his father, whoever it was that was next to him. He looks at his father and he kind of tugs at his shirt, and at the same time he's pointing up at me and kind of looking at me but tugging at his father like, hey, look at this, look at this. And his father turns to him, and he seems kind of like irritated. He turns to him and then looks up at me, and at that moment they're both looking up at me, and I see that the man has the same eyes as the boy, because at first I thought, well, maybe this boy just has weird eyes, but then the man looks up at me and has the same eyes. And then I start to kind of look around the room at other people's eyes, and they're all the same. They all have the exact same black eyes. Whew. So at that point, I'm like, okay, nope, I'm getting out of here. I don't know where I am. I don't know what this place is. And in retrospect, I'm sure they didn't mean me any harm. They probably thought I was a ghost or something, which I guess I was. But still, they scared me. In that moment, for some reason, I was afraid they were going to get me or something. I was afraid they were going to like chase me, or I don't know what I was afraid of. They were probably more scared of me. So anyway, I immediately fly upward, trying to get out of that building. And it must have been like the basement. That room must have been the basement of like a really tall building, because I went up straight through the ceiling, and I actually felt, as I went through the ceiling, I felt, and this is hard to explain because you're not in a physical body, but even when you're in just your spirit body or your astral body, you can still kind of feel physical things. You typically just can't move things. Like, I couldn't like move my phone or anything like that. But I could probably touch it and feel it. So when I went through the ceiling, I literally felt the ceiling, and as I went through it, I could feel each layer of the wood and the insulation and whatever was in the ceiling. I literally felt it as I went through it, and that was bizarre. It kind of freaked me out. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought like I was gonna get hurt, and I was like, wait a minute, no, I can't get hurt. I'm out of my body. So I went through it. And then I kept flying up, and then I went through another ceiling, and another, and another. And I was like, how many rooms, how many levels does this building have? And so I just kept going. I must have went through like at least 5 or 6 levels before I was finally out of this building. And I just zoomed out of that planet, and all of a sudden I find myself back in space, lost. So at that point, I know that wasn't Earth. I don't know where I am. I'm kind of freaking out. I wasn't really thinking straight, and I wasn't realizing that all you have to do, if you do end up kind of lost when you're out of your body and you're a little bit scared or you want to go back, all you have to do is think about your body, or think about where you want to go, and just focus on it and say it out loud if you have to. It's like, I don't want to get into religion on this channel really specifically, because I feel like everyone has their own beliefs, and that's great, and I feel like there's no wrong religion, and each religion has its own piece in the big picture of our universe. But I will just say, just because it's fact, that I was brought up Catholic, and so in this moment when I was out of my body and I was terrified, I immediately just thought, okay, I'm just going to pray to Jesus. I'm going to pray to Jesus, and think, okay, see if he'll take me back home. And I just started praying, and nothing happens. I open my eyes. I'm like, nothing happened. What the heck? Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then all of a sudden, I don't know if I thought of this on my own, or if I maybe had someone kind of guiding me, like a spirit guide or an angel, or some spirit with me. But all of a sudden I got the idea in my head, and I remembered, oh wait, all I have to do is think about my body, or think about Earth. I just have to think about where I want to go and focus on it, and then I'll be there. I was like, oh yeah, that's how I do it. So then I actually closed my eyes, and I'm like still panicking, but I start chanting, Earth, 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 Earth. Like, I want to go back to Earth. And then before I know it, I'm zooming, I'm flying through the air. I'm flying kind of downward. So wherever I was like up somewhere. I kind of feel like I'm flying downward. And then all of a sudden, I find myself back in my body, and I wake up. That's the end of the experience. I do want to note, though, you might be thinking like, okay, well, she prayed to someone. Why didn't he help her? Well, the way I think about that is that we really do have more power than we realize. And the other beings in the universe, be it Jesus, Buddha, whoever, they want to help you, but they also want to help you to realize your own strength and your own power. And so just because you pray about something, or it doesn't mean they'll always answer you. They may answer you by just kind of giving you an idea of what you can do to help yourself. So I know that's what happened to me. It wasn't that I prayed and nobody helped me, and God's not real, and all the religions are wrong. And no, that's not what I'm saying at all. In Robert Monroe's book, Journeys Out of the Body, he kind of had a couple instances like that where he got lost. or he got scared when he was out of his body, and he would pray and nothing would happen. You know, nothing would happen, except eventually he would remember or get the idea in his head of what he could do to go back home. Again, I just want to throw that out there for any of you who might be bothered by what happened to me, or the lack thereof that happened, the aid that I didn't get. It's not that nobody helped me. I think somebody did. It made me feel good. In the end, it made me feel good that I got myself home. You know, like sometimes I think God's spirit, the universe, helps you to help yourself, because you feel better whenever you do help yourself and you accomplish something and think, oh, I did this, you know, or I thought of this. You feel good when you can do for yourself. So immediately when I come back to my body and I wake up, I always get up and I take my phone and I jot down everything that happened. And so I was kind of freaked out by what I saw, but at the same time I thought, you know, that's really interesting. I actually went to another planet that was similar to Earth, but it wasn't Earth. So anyway, if you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos like this in the future. So stay tuned next week. I'm going to be talking about how to astral project, or how to induce an out-of-body experience safely. I realize there's kind of dangerous ways to do that, but I'm going to talk about literally how to exit your body during sleep, or during a sleep-like state or meditation. So if that's something you're interested in, you would like to learn more about, then hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.